All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our webinar for today, Halcyon features for large environments. And our plan today is to talk about some of the things that make Halcyon monitoring the choice for managed service providers and large and IBMI environments because of some of the features like monitoring templates, multiple installs on a single partition, auto update, and other things that we're going to talk about today. And though it's really best known as an IBMI solution, it's a very capable multi-platform monitoring, bringing IBMI and non-IBMI into a single view called the Enterprise Console. We're going to talk about that as well. We've also developed an extensive library of predefined rule templates so that you can get up and running in minutes, not days or weeks. And though today's webinar is really meant to be an educational webinar for those Halcyon customers that we currently have, certainly if you're not a Halcyon customer yet, this will be a good introduction to the solution. All right, so my name is Chuck Lasinski. I'm Director of Technical Solutions here at Help Systems. Mike, go ahead and move the slide forward, please. Been with Help Systems for about 22 years or so, and I'm joined today by a Halcyon expert, Mike Davison. Mike is joining us from the UK. Mike, how are you this morning? This afternoon?
This afternoon, it's 3 o'clock here. I'm great, thank you. Yeah.
All right, and Mike works with a lot of managed service providers worldwide, some very large environments, and Mike's got all the fun today. He's going to be driving the live demonstrations. It's also my great pleasure to introduce Lauren Vasari. Lauren Vasari is our partner manager. So once again, she also works with many large managed service providers worldwide. And Lauren, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Chuck. I'm excited to be here.
Lauren, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do? And Mike, go ahead and, advance the slide. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. So I've been with Help Systems since 2011, so just over a decade, and I manage our North American partnerships here at Help Systems. So I work closely with our MSPs and our VARs, and I support several MSPs today that are already using Halcyon to support their IBMI customers, as well as AIX, Linux, and Windows. So thanks everyone for joining us today.
And you've seen some growth at Help Systems.
Oh, absolutely. I think when I started, Chuck, we maybe had 200 employees. I was just thinking about that the other day.
Well, talk to us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am going to just quickly introduce Help Systems. So, we've really advanced in several areas over the past 4 decades. We've seen incredible growth, both organically and through acquisitions. And since the beginning of 2021, we've acquired 9 businesses to bolster our security offering and address the needs of our customers. We have over 3,000 employees worldwide, including our team of in-house developers committed to enhancing our IBMI solutions. We have 4 IBM Power Champions on our staff, and we have support engineers all around the globe, many of which are tenured staff that have been with Help Systems for a long time. Next slide. So we organize our business into 2 key pillars, automation and security. We help our IBMI partners and customers in several areas. I know we'll talk about automation today, but we also help our customers with high availability, document management, business intelligence, as well as capacity planning. So we're here to meet you wherever you're at in your IT journey. So every year, our EVP of Technical Solutions, Tom Huntington, interviews our customers and our partners on how they're using the platform today. So what's keeping them up at night, top initiatives for the year, and so cybersecurity and HA continue to be focus areas year over year. But one thing I wanted to highlight and point out is IBMI skills is in the top 5. So that's really why we're here today, is to talk about automation solutions and our partners and how we can really fill that gap and address this need. So I'll hand the reins over to Chuck. I think you have a polling question for everyone.
I do, Lauren. Yeah, what we're curious about is what is your role with the organization? Are you with the operations staff? Are you an administrator? Are you a developer? We see a lot of developers who end up being also the operations staff for IBMI. Are you senior staff or potentially management? So we'll give you 30 seconds or so to answer that question. Mike, where did you get your start?
Ah, Chuck, I've got to reach back way into the depths of IT history to 1987 when I started as a trainee operator on a IBM 4381 mainframe.
There you go, 4341?
4381, next
81,
model up.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. And I do have a little exposure to 4341. Those were interesting days, and it goes way, way back. Okay, let's go ahead and close the poll. This is kind of interesting, guys. And let's share the results. So 86% administrator-related functions, operations staff 24, developer 10, and senior staff and management 14. Thank you very much for participating in that. I will hide that. That gives us a little idea who we're talking to. Know your audience, right? And Mike, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Chuck. Okay, well, we've got a number of different sections to look at today, and the first one's going to be the Enterprise Console. And many of you may already be using this, some may not. The great thing about this is you can monitor your IBMI and your non-IBMI, AAX, Linux, Windows, and SNMP devices all from one screen. It enables you to communicate by sending emails and SMS text messages with the appropriate hardware or services, and it can create help desk tickets into your ticketing system automatically. There's escalation built into it, so you can tailor your escalation of unanswered alerts automatically by various means. And it acts as a safety net as well, because it will monitor the endpoint. So it will monitor your IBMIs and your AIX machines and your Linux machines to make sure that the Halcyon software agent on that endpoint is actually up and working, because there's nothing worse than that being shut down or stopped for some reason, and you don't know that actually monitoring is not occurring on that endpoint. It also comes with a basic ping monitoring for monitoring your network endpoints. If you don't have an enterprise level network monitoring tool, you can use Halcyon to give you early warnings that there's problems with your endpoints. And also it gives you that audit and archive, that central audit trail of all alerts raised across your enterprise. So let's go take a look at it then if you haven't seen it. We made a major update to the Enterprise Console at the start of 2020, and we're on now version 11.3. And we're going to talk about some of the things that we added to it, because I know a lot of my managed service providers are still on the old 10.3 because it's nice and familiar, and they like it, and they don't necessarily want to change or have been made aware of the differences. So as you can see here, I've got all of my alerts that need action from a human being here. If you haven't seen the Enterprise Console before, it is highly configurable. We can size the different panels on the screen. We can tailor this to look how we want. We can size up the columns. We can choose which columns and which information that we want to display on there. We can save these layouts, and the administrator can save those in version 11 as public layouts, so they are read-only, and therefore support staff can access a number of different layouts. The default layout that comes with Enterprise Console looks like this. So all of the alerts are on one screen. We can scroll up and down there. We can specify in version 11, we now have the ability to specify the number of alerts per page. So we can have paged alerting, rather than in the old system where if you had a lot of alerts, you could get very quickly lose the woods for the trees. One of the features that is available in 10.3 that looks even better in version 11 is tabbed consoles or tabbed layouts. So as you can see here, I have all of my alerts on this tab here. If I want to suddenly just segregate and see all of my critical alerts, click on this tab. Here are my critical alerts. So then I can go and acknowledge those. Mike is dealing with this, and that will set that to be acknowledged. That will change on the display there. You can also see that it's added a note. If I click on the alert, I can see the details down the bottom, and we can see where I've put that note in there. Again, if I want to segregate further, I could just say, well, show me only my IBMI alerts. Here I've got 32 open IBMI alerts. I've got 25 per page. So if I want to go to the next page, I can just click down here and go and see the remainder of those alerts and deal with them. Segregating out maybe Windows and Unix alerts from my AIX systems, and we can tailor this to however you want. You can do all of this within the console. So it gives you a great front window to all of your monitoring, and it makes it really easy to get to. With version 11, the enhancements we've added are the closed alerts that used to go into an archive file and now remain in the database. So they are just marked as closed, which means we don't have to access a separate application to look at the history. We can, from the Enterprise Console client, dive straight in to, let's go to today. Let's choose which devices, and we can be very generic here, or we can be very specific. We can only look for alerts for a particular device. We can say what source and what alert type. So if we only want to look for critical alerts from a particular device and a particular device range, we can go and find them very quickly. All of the detail that was in the old log file, archive log reader, is within here. So we can see the actions that were performed and the detail of the actual alert. And that's all within the new Enterprise Console client, accessible from the show open and closed buttons on the ribbon bar. Within Enterprise Console, there are a number of server settings, and to go with the closed alerts, we now have the archive settings, which allow us to purge the older alerts after a period of time, and we can choose how long we want to retain those within the database in there. I've talked about the layouts and the layouts being able to be public for pushing around there. They're actually stored in the database now, so there's no layout files stored on the local client. And another thing we can do is we can search within the alert text. So if we want to search in here, it will then highlight for us where we get matches on keywords. How do you think that looks now, Chuck?
It looks awesome, Mike. I have a question for you. So how do multiple users access the Enterprise Console?
Sorry, Chuck, I didn't catch that.
Oh, how do multiple users access the Enterprise Console?
Well, multiple users access through the client, and the client, which is what we're looking at now. This is just the client running on my enterprise server. Now, I know a lot of my customers, they access the console via remote desktop onto the console server, and they fire up the client. But this client can actually be installed on your local desktop or your laptop. There's even a mobile app for Apple and Android, which you can download from the various stores. That gives you a simplified view of the alerts, so it's useful if you're on the go all the time. But the client here allows you to access it from your local machine, and we can add in users within the enterprise server options, so we can create different users on here so that everybody has their own ID.
Awesome. Awesome. You also mentioned that the Enterprise Console supports network address translation, or NAT.
Yes, it does. That's built into the network manager within the product. So if we've got NATing going on at an MSP level, it makes it really easy to manage that.
Awesome.
And of course, down on the left-hand side here, this is just obviously my layout. I can see all of my systems and we can create device groups within Device Manager. And for my managed service providers, they tend to create device groups named after their customers. So it'd be customer A, customer B, customer C, and then they can put all of their IBM I devices under that customer. And if they're monitoring AX or Windows devices for those customers, well, they can lump them all together under that customer's group, and then they can immediately see on the display where there is a problem with the device.
Awesome, very good.
So that leads us neatly on to the code uploader. Now, you may or may not have heard about the code uploader. The code uploader is for IBM I, and it allows you to upload multiple codes to multiple systems in one go. When I say codes, I'm talking about authorization codes. Now, a lot of our managed service providers, they rent our software on a quarterly basis, which is great because it gives them the opportunity to flex up and flex down as they onboard new customers. So they'll get new codes every quarter, temporary codes. And to be honest, it's a bit of a pain adding all those codes into Halcyon, because just for one, you've got to log on, go Halcyon, work authorization codes, F6, paste it in, enter it. If you request your codes from our codes team to use with the code uploader, you will get a file, and that file contains all of the codes for all of your systems. And what it does is it validates those codes against the systems that you have defined in Device Manager, and it enables you to upload those and report on any errors during upload or failure. Let's go take a look. So in Device Manager here, I have my IBM I devices, group 1 and group 2 here. It's my predefined. If I fire up the code uploader, it asks me which file I want to use. So this is the file that you would have been sent. It then, if I maximize that up, there we go. It then verifies the codes in the file against what it sees in Device Manager. And it's saying to me here that, yes, this is verified. So I have a device for this, this, and this. I don't know what this is. I've got no license detected in the code file for this device that you have defined in Device Manager. So there's a level of validation performed here as well, which is great. I can then choose to select none or select all, or be selective about which codes I want to apply and when. As I've selected all of these, I punch the upload button, and that goes away and starts processing those codes. It tells me if I've got an error, and it tells me if they've gone up okay. So this is my test system. So if I go up to here, whilst that's working away in the background, if I work with my authorization code, I can see that my new temp code has been added. And I also get a note in the message log that it was added just now by the system. And I can see that I've had some errors on other ones, so I can look at those and look in the message log, and I can then see where the problems lie. So I can see that I'm not getting a response from a couple of my systems, so I need to go and resolve that before I can then try to re-upload those codes. But 3 of them did go through okay, so I'm very happy about that. Another useful utility, Chuck? It beats it when you've got 300 systems. It takes about 2 minutes.
every 3 months too. Mike, remind me, what is the file type that you'll receive from keys@helpsystems.com?
It's a .hcf file, stands for Halcyon code file.
Halcyon code file. Excellent. Yeah. Okay.
And I know this was a real eye-opener for one of my MSPs who'd never heard of this before, and they came in to say, look, we're spending hours doing this every 3 months. And I says, haven't you heard of the code upload? And they're like, no. And this literally transformed them, because they were spending hours doing this, and it now takes them 5 minutes.
Yeah, and just to be perfectly clear for everybody, this is for security codes. Awesome, very good. What's next, Mike?
What we got next? Well, we have got templates. So templates, this is a real selling point of the Halcyon software, not only on IBM I, but cross-platform as well. And templates are built into the software. So they're shipped with it and they're built into the code. And what you have to do is simply run a command with a code. The popular software for the IBM I, we've got WebSphere MQ, Power HA, Robot HA, PowerTech Antivirus, Vision Solutions, Itera, iCluster. And we've looked at these popular software sets and decided that this is the stuff that we need to monitor if you're running this particular piece of software on your system. So you just run the cust env code with the code, and it adds all this monitoring in that enables you to get up and running within minutes, as opposed to spending hours or days creating rules for your systems. The documentation's available from the portal. Look for Guide to manuals. There's the examples there, the Guide to the Quick EDD and the Guide to IBM Power HA. You can download those. It shows you in the manual exactly what it's going to add in. Okay, and I'll give a go. Let's go and do an example of that now. So if I go into, let's just get rid of that there. We'll go to my test 2 environment on here. Now, ordinarily, Halcyon is shipped with a load of rules already predefined. So in my test environment here, if I expand this, you can see that there's monitoring for BRMS. We've got standardized messages for QSysOpera. We've got example rules for TCP and output queues. So these are shipped as standard, and these exist in the product when you install it. So it gives you a good starting point. If I'm on this test 2 system here, what I've done is I've got rid of everything. Test, we want to go test 2, that one there. I've got rid of everything out of here, so that there are no rules on here at all. What I'm going to do now is, in this test 2 environment, I'm going to do a customization command. I'm going to put in the code CSX1128. And that just takes a moment, and that's extracting those rules, and it's applied my Power HA customizations. So I can then see, if let's expand everything in here, you can see it's created a rule group for HA cluster. It's added in QHIST and messages for QSysOpera. It's quite a lot in here. So it's looking for specific messages in there. We've then got job log monitoring for Power HA, device monitoring for Power HA, performance rules monitoring for Power HA, and audit journal rules for Power HA. So you can see that there's a group of rules across the entire spectrum of Halcyon monitoring, instantly defined for you, and you can decide by looking at those guides whether they're going to work for you or not. You could even add them and then modify them to suit your own needs. So, and it's as simple as that. Running that command, and you get literally it takes less than a minute to apply all of those rules to your systems. Now, we also have templates on non-IBM I. So if we go back to my non-IBM I system, and these are managed through Central Configuration Manager, the CCM console, and we have all of these are shipped with the product. We've got Windows templates here for Active Directory, Exchange Server, M3 monitoring, standard server performance, SQL Server. We've got monitoring for Linux flavors, Oracle, Red Hat, and SUSE, and also AIX. Things like DB2, MQ, Oracle JDE, Power HA, PowerTech Antivirus, and standard system monitoring. And these can be quite easily selected. And then if you had a list of 200 AIX servers in here, you could simply tick the box at the top and say, apply those to all 200 servers, and away it would go and apply those templated rules to those 200 servers. And I have a managed service provider in the UK here who is using that for Linux and AIX as well as IBM I. So it's very, very easy to deploy. Now, if you are also if you are a managed service provider, going back to the IBM I here, we have a service that we can do for you, and we can create your own customization code. So where you onboard a new customer for IBM I, you might have a standard set of managed service provider rules that you want to apply to every single system that you onboard. If you get in touch with us, we can, and you supply us with the rules in form of a file, which we can talk to you about, we can then create those into the software so that when you deploy Halcyon and you install it, you can then just run a custom code and apply your templating to that new installation. And that's something we do for half a dozen or so customers worldwide already. So if you're interested in that, do come and ask us about it. What do you think about that, Chuck?
You know, that's really a cool deal. So the IBMI monitors are built in. All you have to do is select which monitor you want to apply. Is that correct? Or which template?
Correct. Yeah, choose which template you want from the range that are available. Ask us for the code and we'll quite happily give you the code for those.
And I saw on the non-IBMI side, BIOS monitoring was listed. That's got to be a popular option.
Yes, for sure it is. If you're running IBMI, chances are you're running BIOS as well. So we've got, let's just scroll down here. BIOS is it's a superset of AIX, and the BIOS agents that we have that runs on the BIOS platform is certified by IBM. It's authorized by them, and we have a cut down version of the monitoring that allows us to monitor things like error reporting in the BIOS system. We've got the script monitor that will allow you to do all sorts of lovely different types of command line checking of, for example, checking that VFC hosts that are not logged in, devices that are not available, maps that are not available. We can monitor the configuration files on your BIOS machine to make sure they've not been changed. And of course, that standard CPU, file systems, and memory, paging space, etc. Because the last thing we want to be occurring on a BIOS system is for paging to be happening.
Exactly. And though you do have redundant BIOS, certainly you want to know when you're having problems with one of them.
Absolutely, and a lot of our customers who run IBMI and have BIOS use our BIOS monitoring on cross-platform as well.
Gotcha. Well, Mike, let's give you a little break and let's turn things over to Lauren for a moment.
Excellent.
Absolutely. So we thought it made sense to highlight a few of our other solutions benefiting our MSP partners today. Performance Navigator came to us from an acquisition back in 2018, and it truly was a great addition to the Help Systems family. I was just talking about it briefly with Chuck when we joined, that we've had a lot of questions from our partners related to Performance Navigator in sizing and in preparation for the Power 10 rollout. So we have hundreds of partners worldwide using the software for capacity planning, whether it's upgrading a customer with on-prem hardware or sizing for the cloud or both, right? We have a lot of customers that want to look at both options, and our Performance Navigator software can accommodate. We also have service providers and customers using the software today for monthly performance reporting, understanding capacity by frame, and deep problem determination analysis. So there's a lot of use cases for the software today. I have a conversation related to Performance Navigator every day, especially as it relates to capacity planning services, which we also have available for our partners. And even IBM uses the software today for capacity planning. Next slide. So we've had many conversations over the past couple of years rather, related to ransomware, related to cyber insurance, and just general security concerns. Our free security scan is something that our partners can offer to their customers as well. It only takes a few minutes to run, and it's really a great opportunity to understand what vulnerabilities exist in the customer's environment. Maybe even offer it as a service before a customer is onboarded into the cloud. And then we have a team of security experts here that can review the findings with you and the customer, can help prioritize items for remediation. And so this security scan is available to you, it's available to your customers. So just let us know how we can help in this regard as well. Next slide, Mike. All right, so our File Catalyst software is a relatively recent addition to our portfolio, and it's already making an impact with our IBMI partners, specifically to accelerate file transfers for cloud opportunities. We just had a recent example of an IBMI data transfer from the UK to Sydney, Australia. The customer was using an incumbent solution and was able to reduce the amount of time to get the data to the cloud from 10 hours to 3 minutes using the File Catalyst software. So it's an extremely powerful tool, and I'm really excited to see how we continue helping our partners as well as our customers with their migrations. All right, Mike, I'll hand the reins back over to you.
Thanks, Lauren. So the next thing we're going to take a look at is multiple environments. And multiple environments are really useful in that they allow us to install, using the same license code, another Halcyon environment in the same system. And that's great for something like HA and DR, where we often use it to have separate monitoring between our production and our DR when live. Because of course, if you've got two servers, one's production, one's DR, and they're in an active passive role, the monitoring requirements for when it's in production are different for when it's in the passive role, because you won't be running your applications or anything on the DR side. So what we would do is create two environments on the same machine, one called prod, one called HA generally, and then we'd be able to flip between those two environments depending on which mode the server was in. And this can be automated. So for example, if you're using Mimics through a Mimics script and your failover process, you can flip it all automatically. You can also test. You can test out our latest releases in a safe, non-production environment. So if you haven't upgraded in a while, you might want to have a look at what features are available rather than just barging straight in with an upgrade. You could install it into a test environment using the same code. Also allows you to practice that upgrade process and create rules in a safe space or a safe place without affecting your Halcyon production monitoring. So what does it look like on the IBM i? Well, it's great for me when I'm doing my support, because I can install multiple environments at different levels. So if a customer who's back level, for example, 2019-192, I can go and test any issues that they might be having in a completely separate environment. The most often thing I see this used for, of course, as I've said before, is when we have a production and a HA environment where we flip between the two. And you can actually have as many environments as you want. And all you got to do, install a new environment, and you can go and use your existing authorization code that you've got. You can copy that and paste it into the new environment, and it will just work. You don't have to come and ask us for a special authorization code for that particular LPAR. There is on the community portal, under the knowledge base articles, there is a how-to document in how to use Halcyon in a replicated environment, and that's available for you to download as a PDF, and that will explain how to set that up. And it talks about, if I come down to here, about the two different environments, and you can see here we've got prod and HA, depending on which one is active, and they just use different ports. So it's all within that how-to. So you can go and download that from the community portal knowledge base article, or give us a shout in support and we'll gladly send that to you.
Quick question, Mike. So because you're running multiple environments, you said you could test, for instance, an updated version of Halcyon
for sure
on the same partition. Can you run those in parallel then?
Yes, you can. So you could run your production monitoring. You could then spin up your test or your new version. You can run that in parallel. The only caveat with that is message queue monitoring, and that is with an inquiry wait message. Only one monitoring tool, whether that's Halcyon or something else, can get to an inquiry wait message first.
Sure.
So if you've got
yeah.
2 environments, one of them will pick it up. If it's Halcyon and one picks it up, the other one will see it, but it will raise a closed alert to say, hey, I saw this, but someone else has got to it before me.
Exactly. That makes sense. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. As mentioned, if you do have any questions, please feel free to send those in. We've got some questions that are popping in here. We'll talk about those at the end. Mike, let's talk about remote location groups.
Here we go. Yeah, remote location groups. So another often unknown about feature of Halcyon is the ability to have remote location groups. What are these, you might ask? Well, when you define remote locations, they are in Halcyon, they are what we're saying that these are other devices and other environments within our Halcyon infrastructure, within our whole environment. And remote location groups allow us to group those remote locations into logical containers, a bit like the device grouping on the Halcyon Enterprise Console server in Device Manager. This then allows you to deploy configuration updates to single or multiple groups. So if we go take a look at that. If we go into configuration and we look at our remote locations, these are all the different systems that we have. Now, one thing I like to encourage with my managed service providers is to have what I call a master Halcyon installation. And that is having an IBM ILPAR, one of your own within your own data center, not belonging to a customer, that you install Halcyon onto, and you set that up as a master environment. You then add all of your IBM I customer remote locations into this one environment. Once you've done that, you then work with remote location groups, which is option 5 from the configuration menu, and you can create a group. So here I've got one, I've called it JCB, and I've added in 2 systems there that belong to JCB. Now, if I wanted to push out a configuration change from my master system to all of JCB systems, whether it was one system or 15, 20 systems, I can then do that in one foul stroke from within my master system. And here's my master environment here. If I go to and make a change, shall we say, let's go down to performance, example. Let's create a duplicate of that rule, and let's say maybe I've changed this rule for my own purposes. Just make a change to that there, and then I want to export it. I can export that to all of the JCB systems in one go by doing this, if I remember my password, and that will then push that out to those individual systems in one go. And it failed, probably got my password wrong, but you get the gist of it. It will, if you've got 20 systems to do that for, you don't want to be creating the rule 20 times on each system, and you don't want to be exporting it 20 times. You want to be pushing out using one command, using a remote location group.
I could see that being a great time saver, Mike.
It's a great time saver, and it really reduces the admin burden on setting up rules. Now, when I talk about 20 systems and managed service providers, well, that same applies if you're not a managed service provider, but you've got 10 LPARs within your environment. You don't want to be going around adding or updating a rule on 10 systems to keep them in sync. You want to essentially push it out through an export using a remote location group from a master environment.
Precisely. And
go on.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, and the beauty is that the automation is actually taking place then. The rule is on each node, each IBM I system.
Yeah, absolutely. Where you have commonality, for example, on every machine, we want to maybe monitor that QBatch job subsystem is up. That's a given. So one rule on a master system, push it out to all of them. You might want to change that, push it out to using the remote location group.
Precisely. Now, related to remote location groups is the auto export.
And that leads us nicely on, Chuck. You're a great compere here. So auto export, again, a feature you might not have known about. You'll notice then in the previous example, I did an export. Well, did you know we can do an auto export, which is automatic. It makes a change to, if you make a change to a rule that has been set as auto export, then it will automatically be updated to the target systems. Therefore, it reduces that admin burden when making a change, knowing that it's doing that automatically for you in the background. And of course, you can make use of remote location groups to push that out in one go as well. So let's go take a look at that then. So on this system here that I so spectacularly failed at previously, I have set up auto export, and that's option 30 from the work with rule screens against a rule group. So you can see here that I have already set up for this to go to those JCB systems. I can set the status to no change. This is what is the status on the receiving system. I'm saying I don't want to hold or release the rules. I just want to leave them as they are, whether they're held or not. And the export is set here. I've set this up previously. So if I make a change to any of the rules in this QSysOper group, they will automatically be reflected. So you can see here where I've been making some changes to the title. This is a change. We'll change the title of that. I'm not going to press enter just yet because I'm going to go over to this system. Let's go take option 5, work with rules, QSysOper. We can see that that rule doesn't exist in this test 2 environment. Okay, that's important. Let's go into the test 1 environment and let's look at the rules in there. We can see there's that rule, all inquiry messages, Y. So now I'm going to press enter. Rule has changed. Lovely. Let's look at the message log, which, as we all know, this is where it tells us everything that's going on, and it's there telling us auto export has occurred. I'll refresh this screen with F5, and there is my change that is reflected in this environment. And if I go into the other environment, you can see why multiple environments are really useful for me. If I go into this environment and whoops, caught the function key there, F11 into there, and we can see that it's not been added to that one. In fact, yes, it has. There it is, 900. This is a change. So it didn't exist on here. It's added it in. It hasn't changed the status at this end, and it updated it on the other system. So it gives that commonality. And that is a great use of the remote location groups and auto export of rules. So if you've got that master installation where you've got a predefined set of rules that you want on every system, it's great for, and you want to make a slight change to one of them, it'll update it across all of your machines automatically without you having to log on.
So related to that, Mike, does this require a service account then across all your partitions?
Yes, it does. Excuse me. Yes, it will require a service account so that the master system can connect on to the remote system, log on and transfer the data.
Perfect. Okay.
And another subject with auto in the title, because we like automation, is auto upgrade. And auto upgrade allows us to control when an upgrade of Halcyon software takes place. It allows the remote location to check in with the master installation, and if a new version is found, it can perform an upgrade. So what it does is the remote system connects to the master system and says, have we got a different version to what I've got? And if the answer is yes, it will download that from the master system to the local machine, to the HalInst library. Then it will say, am I allowed to upgrade? And it comes back to the master system, and this is where we can control whether we allow it or not, and we'll go and have a look at that now. So on my master system here, I have a command called control panel, which lives in the HAL installation library. and all of my system statuses are held. So I am not permitting any of the remote systems to automatically upgrade at this time. Once the system checks in for the first time, and it has a different software version, so the version on this machine is the latest, 2021.207. The version on this old system here is 2018.248.1. It's checked in and it says, well, I've got an old version, and it's asked, am I allowed? And we've refused because the status is held. So we're not going to allow it to upgrade. When I want that to upgrade, I simply release that. And the next time it checks in, it will perform the upgrade. Now, you also want to control when that's done. So in the Halcyon library on this side, there is a command called config, and that's where you set up where the master system is and what systems, what environments you want to upgrade on this machine. So I've got 4 environments, and you can then schedule when those occur. And using this command creates job scheduled entries, which you could transfer into your own job schedule if you want. And this will then, this is checking in weekly, have you got a new version? And if so, it updates the local version of the software. And this is when we check in to see if we're permitted to perform the upgrade. And the upgrade will shut Halcyon down, end the subsystem cleanly. It will update the software and start Halcyon back up again. So if you've got a lot of systems that you're managing, then you can set this to auto upgrade. Personally, I wouldn't recommend it to occur at 3 a.m. on a Sunday morning, because if something goes wrong, and it's not often it does, but if something does go wrong, you don't want to be getting a call at 3 in the morning. I'd schedule this to be running during the day. But then we can control as and when it happens. A lot of automation in there, Chuck, for us, eh?
There is. I really like the auto update. Question, you actually, this was a statement that you made when we were prepping for this webinar. You talked about how, you know, some of our MSPs or customers don't necessarily update their versions of Halcyon, but the enterprise console still works with those back-leveled versions. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, it is. It's version agnostic. It doesn't care whether you're running a 2016 version of IBMI or a bang up to date 2021.207 version. It will still continue to talk to those IBMI systems.
Now, in no way are we condoning that up
no.
your systems.
Definitely. I mean, we're releasing updates typically now every 6 months. So please do keep up to date, because sometimes it can be a real pain. A customer comes in with 5-year-old out-of-date software and we say, well, the first thing we need you to do is to upgrade.
Yes.
So
yeah, for continuity purposes, it's nice that it's backwards compatible, but certainly, you know, stay updated as much as possible.
Yeah, and we're not forcing you to update every month or every week. It's but hey, let's do it once a year at least.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Well, that's the last topic that we're going to talk about from a technology standpoint. What we're going to do is we're going to give Mike about a 2-minute break here, and we're going to launch a polling question, just sort of a follow-up question. Lauren, you want to talk to this a little bit?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Chuck. So I know we covered a lot of ground today, great information. We want to know how we can be a better partner to you. What would you like as a next step? So we do have the option of scheduling a one-on-one demo with our team specific to your monitoring needs. We also can chat more about our free security scan, how that might apply in your environment or for your customers. We can talk about Performance Navigator as well, whether it's related to sizing or reporting. Talk about the File Catalyst product as it relates to migrating your customers to the cloud. Or we can have a conversation related to non-IBMI monitoring. As Mike and Chuck had talked about during this presentation, our Halcyon software extends to those to Windows, Linux, and AIX environments as well. So just let us know how we can help you. We're looking forward to having a follow-up conversation.
And Lauren, certainly we're very thankful for all your efforts on behalf of our managed service providers, and as well as you work with some partners that are not MSPs. And so we'll leave this open for a minute or two. In the meantime, Mike, I'm going to let you take a look at the Q&A, and is there anything there that you'd like to address?
I've just been looking over those actually. Yeah, Peter asks, with the Enterprise Console version 11, the archive is gone. We rely on it for audit reports. Can the old archives be accessed directly in the Enterprise Console version 11? If not, how are they accessed? That's a great question, Peter. So the archive is not gone. The archive from version 10.3 will remain as a file on the disk, which is where it used to be with version 10.3. You'll still be able to access that up to the point that you upgrade to version 11 using the Halcyon archive viewer, and then any point in the future you will be able to continue to use that. And as the archive grows into the database, you'll continue then to use the client to access that. Are there any templates for working with full system flash copy toolkit? Peter asks as well. So no, not yet. However, if there is a software product that you work with and you would like a template for, then come and ask us and we'll work with you and we'll create that and we'll get it into the software. What about Hemant asks if what about if HA is different power system and serial number? So that's fine, they often are. So they will require their own license keys. And typically I believe they're charged less than a main installation if they're in a sort of a passive state. On the auto updater, is it smart enough to not try and upgrade systems that are pre V7R1 since the new versions do not support earlier releases? Tom, I will have to come back to you on that because I do not know the answer. Great question. Thanks very much. I think that's I think that's it on the questions.
Okay. Well, we'll give you another 60 seconds to answer any questions or to ask any questions you might have. Otherwise, Mike, share your camera.
And we're coming up. This one here.
And we just hope that we're helping you keep IT simple.
Health Systems team.
You bet. You bet.
Yeah, that's what I want. At the end of the day, Chuck, I want any managed service provider or any large customer worldwide who's using Halcyon. I don't want it to be a burden for them to use Halcyon. I want them for it to be, keep it simple and use these tools because that's what they're built into the software already.
Yeah, Lauren, we can't see you. Go ahead and share your camera.
I didn't have the shirt, so.
She didn't get the memo.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead and advance the slide, Mike, and we'll bring this to a conclusion. We really appreciate everybody attending today. We appreciate your business. If you do have any additional questions or comments, you can reach out to us directly. Likewise, you can reach out to the email address that's on the screen, and you can be sure that we will get back to you. Closing thoughts, Lauren?
Enjoy the rest of your week. We appreciate your partnership. Thanks so much.
Mike?
If you need us, contact us in support.halcyon@healthsystems.com and use those tools.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. And thanks again. Bye-bye.
Cheers, everybody. Bye-bye.